ideas that you've talked about is almost the ability to kind of be your own therapist, recognising there's a lot of value in people getting counselling and therapy skills, and we've talked a bit about how you can access that through your GP, through charities, and through private sessions. But kind of, what do you mean by being your own therapist?
Yeah. Well, one of the main aims of counselling or any sort of structured therapy, like cognitive behavioural therapy, is to allow the client to leave the final session with a real toolkit that they can use to look after themselves. I mean, we use the phrase "become your own therapist" as a goal for the client, but that is what it is. They are already an expert in themselves, and they need to just apply the new expertise from the counselling to themselves. But you don't have to go into counselling to pick up some of these skills. The first big area is around what we call maintenance behaviours.
Okay.
I always say to clients, in a way, the thing that made you depressed or made you anxious isn't where our focus can be, because some of those things can't be changed. You really do have someone who's been diagnosed recently with a disorder, and you can't change that. You really did lose your job last year. We can't change that. As important as those things are, the focus needs to be on the here and now and the future. Yeah. The key idea here is that we all have worries and anxieties. We all have days when we feel down. But these feelings are perpetuated very often by certain types of behaviours or certain types of thinking. So we're focusing on not what caused the depression, but what's maintaining the depression. Okay. And in essence, there are two types of dynamics here. A classic one is when someone is anxious about a situation, like a phobia, an anxiety about going to a supermarket, for example. Now, there may be all sorts of reasons why the person has an anxiety about supermarkets, but the approach will be the same. That individual will be avoiding supermarkets because they're unhappy with them, they're uneasy about them, about the lighting, about a memory they've had, about a worry that something might happen, but they will avoid going to the supermarket. But by not going to the supermarket, all they have in their head is that set of fears about supermarkets. They never get challenged by real life. So when I've worked with people who have phobias, if that's the right way of thinking about it, is to help them gradually go back to a supermarket.
Okay.
And to rate on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the most anxious they could be and 1's the most relaxed they could be, how anxious they think it will be to go to a supermarket. And it's always 9 or 10. And I say, okay, well, tell you what, first of all, why don't you drive past a supermarket and think about going in? But you don't have to go in. And it's interesting, many people do in fact go in, but that's another story. So I said, well, how anxious was that? Well, it was about 6 or 7. Okay. So you get them ready to go to the supermarket, and they do in fact go to the supermarket, and they come back and they'll say, well, actually, it was only a 6.
Right.
It was nowhere near as anxious as I thought it was going to be. But their avoidance of the thing that's making them anxious perpetuates and maintains the anxiety. Flying is a similar one. People who are afraid of flying tend to avoid flying and never get to challenge and experience the fact that it's not as anxiety provoking as they thought it was going to be. Public speaking is another one. But if you've got anxiety about what might happen in the future, much of the anxiety is caused by not by behaviours about avoiding anything, but it's caused by constant rumination.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people going over the same thoughts
going
over
over
and
the
over
same again and
just
again.
Kind of playing through scenarios.
And long chains of, if that happens and I don't do that, and then she does that, and it's on a Friday, because I won't have the car on a Friday, then that might happen. And it's just a long chain. And the mind energy they're using, as it were, so to speak, is not helping. It's actually making it worse. It's actually creating more and more habits about worrying about things that are probably not going to happen. And if they were to happen, they would not be as negative as the person thinks. And if they were to happen, and if they were negative, completely underestimate the capability of the individual to deal with it. So, two types of maintenance dynamics: behaviours which avoid a situation, and thinking which creates habits of thought regarding that perceived threat. There are also things, what we call the kind of supporting behaviours which are unnecessary. People might say, well, I will go to the cinema, though I don't like cinemas, I get very, very anxious, as long as a friend comes with me.
Okay.
Yeah, and that can be seen as being a solution. And in a way, it helps, and so be it. But the safety net of having the friend there doesn't allow the individual to explore what it would be like on their own.
Okay.
And with a bit of preparation and a bit of support and guidance regarding, you know, if you go to the cinema and you're a bit anxious because of public places in the dark, then you're looking for certain things. But if you are aware that you have a tendency to be biased in your thinking and you open it up a bit more, you'll see that actually it's a much safer and much less threatening environment than you thought it was. And just going there and learning that and going there again and again, the attenuation, the reduction in the anxiety is very real and very, very quick. Now, in the context of carers, there are various things that a person might do that maintains anxiety or sadness. There might be certain friends that you avoid because you don't want to answer their questions. You worry that the person might be judgmental towards the work that you do. It may be that you are constantly thinking about whether or not you should seek some power of attorney, some legal authority over the person you're caring for. It may be to do with, should you sell this house and buy a smaller house, or a house that's fitted with certain facilities to help the care. And these are all problems that can be solved. You can make a decision about those, but the tendency to think about it in a certain sort of way, or to avoid thinking about it, perpetuates the anxiety, perpetuates the low mood.
So what can the person then do about it? So recognising that there are these patterns of behaviour that are...
Well, the first thing is to try and move away from the rumination, the constant thinking about the possibilities that might happen, and to move towards defining it as a problem to be solved. So when we think about problem solving, the research shows that when people are not at their best, when they're very anxious, very depressed or angry, they tend to latch on to the first credible possible solution, which is very rarely the best one. So the system that we can use is to think about the problem and to define it clearly. What specifically is the problem? So the problem is not that you are worrying about next month's finances. The problem is that you think you might not have enough money next month. That's the thing to be solved. You can then consider what would count as a solution to that problem. Do you need to find all the money to pay all the bills, or do you need to find enough money to pay the older bills rather than the new one? Just need to be very clear about what would count as a solution. And then the next step is the one which people find counterintuitive, and it's simply to list all as many possible interventions, as many possible potential solutions as you can think of, even if they sound daft.
Right.
That's the trick, right? So you want to things. I mean, in this situation, it could be, if possible, I can get a part-time job, or maybe I could sell some things, or maybe I could
get a lodger, or you
get a
could
lodger,
sell a house,
absolutely,
get a smaller place.
Indeed, So all those things which have a degree of credibility depending on the situation, but also some daft ones, like I could develop magic powers and win the lottery. I could invent a brand new system for drainage and make a fortune overnight.
I could find gold in
the back garden.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Not because we think that trying to win the lottery or finding gold is a likely possibility. It's obviously not. It's just trying to get an element of unfreezing assumptions and
breaking thought patterns.
Breaking thought patterns. It comes back to this issue about when we're not at our best, when we're anxious or depressed, we kick into automatic pilot, and there's habits, thinking habits. Is to break those down. And I've had lots of clients who have, and it can be really funny as well, when they link the daft possible solution to what they actually did. just, I mean, many years ago, I had a situation where someone was trying to find ways of affording to go on a holiday.
Okay.
And one of the things, daft thing they came up with was that they would sell tickets to a show on the cruise,
Right.
and they would make a fortune from it. But actually, it's like, no, actually, if I got 2 or 3 friends to come with me on the first part of the journey to the boat, we could have a lot of fun together, and they could chip in. And what he actually did was arranged it so that his friends chipped in to help him go on the holiday,
Right.
and then they all agreed they would chip into each other further down the line.
Oh,
It was
okay.
incredible. And he said, "But I would never have thought of that. First of all, I just wouldn't have thought of it. Secondly, I thought it wouldn't fly. Why would they give me money?" He said,
Yeah.
"But actually, because we all made it a group activity for the send-off, they were happy. I mean, they only chipped in a small amount of money,
Yeah.
but it was that idea." He said, and it was getting from the daft idea of them all going in the boat together to raise money for me to be there, actually a much smaller, more modest version of that actually worked.
Right.
And there's lots of examples of that. So it's all about unfreezing assumptions. It's about trying to break through the habits. And frankly as well, if we are looking at daft solutions, it means that we can more easily spot the habitual ones. I'm going to borrow money from my father because he's never actually cared about my
Yeah.
partner at all. Think, whoa, hang on.
Yeah.
That's a way of thinking that probably isn't accurate. It's not necessary. It's not helpful. So the creative side, the daft, as it were, possible solutions, also sheds a harsh light on some of the kind of things that you're going to automatically. So having looked at the long list of long list of possible solutions, so that you just then have a short. It's a long list. You have a short list then of maybe 4 or 5 possible ones, and you might combine some of the ideas. And at that point, some things click, and then you have 5, more or less doable things. Might be difficult, might take a bit more thought, but and then you simply go through them and look at all the advantages and disadvantages of each one.
Okay.
And then you pick one and saying that's the one, that's right now, and the best knowledge I've got on the resources available to me, as far as I'm able to address it, that is the best intervention I can think of right now. And then you implement it and you monitor how it worked. But in all that process, in the background, the mind is moving away from a habit-based rumination, a habit-based chasing the what-ifs, a habit-based distress purchase, a habit-based reaction, habit-based automatic pilot, gradually through more flexibility, more creativity, and then coming back into a structured approach linked to action. That's the key thing. A structured approach linked to action, which has been fueled by innovation and creativity and daftness and working through some of that habitual thinking, is now a structured, actionable, realistic intervention that you can do, and then you do it. When you get into the habit of, when you get into the style of using that technique, it gives you much more confidence in terms of dealing with anxieties. You know that it's realistic to postpone worry and then pick it up again with a practical approach, a problem-solving approach that actually, links into some of the unhelpful ways of dealing with problems maybe you've been applying before, into a more creative but practical approach in the future.
I hope you found this course helpful. At FCC, we're committed to providing courses and training for unpaid carers, and these courses are completely free. If you found this helpful, you could support our work in 3 ways. Please recommend it to any friends or people that you know that will benefit from the courses. Please consider sharing it on social media. And if you can, please consider donating. There are buttons on the website where you can donate £1, £2, £5, and every pound that you donate will make a huge difference by helping us make more and more care courses completely free to carers. Thank you very much.